ICT is a broad topic, so we decided to narrow the focus of this panel because Ashok Kamath and Professor Mishra have been saying that we need some actionable items to come out of this panel. And fortunately, we've been able to have chats among ourselves over the last week or two to come out with the topics we should focus on and what we can discuss on those topics. So we've picked AI and 5G. And the aim is that in AI, can industry, academia, with IIT ACB as a nodal point, and policymakers involved, make India a dominant player in AI? Today, the perception is that China is far ahead of India. And in the telecom space in 5G, can we produce Huawei's from India, which we haven't really succeeded to date? And what policy changes, what industry work, what academia work is required? I also know and can see that there are very eminent people in the audience. So we are going to leave time for a lot of audience participation, comments, questions. Of course, they should be brief, but comments, questions, and all will be welcome at the end. So without much ado, let me request Professor UB Desai to kick this off, and his discussion point will be AI.
So thanks, Samir, and thank IIT ACB for inviting me to this panel. This topic has been kind of talked about quite a bit in India, I would say over the last 2 to 3 years, like how can we create another Huawei? It's a very, 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 very tall order. It's not going to be that easy, okay, because the dynamics are very different. For example, in 5G, we have a big testbed project, perhaps one of the biggest projects given by Government of India, totaling about 230 crores. Okay, and it is a collaborative project between IIT Madras. They are the leaders out there. IIT Hyderabad, IIT Bombay, IIT Kanpur, IIT Delhi, and I'm sure there are many others which I'm sort of missing out right now. So in that sense, yes, it's a collaborative project. So the positive note, but it took nearly, I would say, 2 years to get that project sanctioned. So that was the, and these technologies you can't wait for 2 years. Now 5G testbed, I'll put a plug for a startup company. I mean, I shouldn't say startup, they're almost MSME today. WISEC at IIT Hyderabad, headed by Kiran Kuchi. And it's just a kind of fortunate thing, I'm sitting next to the CEO of Tejas. We have one of the biggest MIMO testbed implementation in the world, and we have used Tejas equipment. So in that sense, and not just Tejas equipment, we have been collaborating also with Tejas on that particular part. So a lot of, we are talking about industry academia collaboration. Already this is taking place in the 5G testbed project. Okay. Now, it's going on quite well. IoT is another big area along with 5G, NB-IoT particularly, which is part and parcel of the 5G standards. Now, what happens in a very high-tech area, if you look at it, particularly ICT, and let me focus on communication because we're talking of 5G, then we're looking at AI. There are really no major Indian industries to collaborate. Tejas is perhaps one of the rare ones that we have out here. We are forced to collaborate with multinationals. Now what happens today when we start to collaborate with multinationals, today it has become a very competitive problem. Because when you go to 5G, it is a big standards game. It is not simply technology. You want to participate in 3GPP, the standards body. India has a standard body called TSDSI. When you go to 3GPP, you are actually, our ideas or our standards that we want to propose are being blocked by MNCs. I'm using the word a little harshly out here. So there is a nice kind of, it's a very big game which is played. I have not participated as actively, but people like Kiran Kuchi, people like Bhaskar Ramamurthy, Abhay Karandikar, I think many of them have participated much. So now how do you collaborate with an MNC, okay, where when you go at 3GPP, you are essentially, not just arguing, you are competing with them because we are proposing, like there is a standard called LMLC, many of you might have heard of it, low mobility large cell, which is very suited for Indian rural areas. Now we have been trying to push it. Sometimes we feel, yes, now we are almost there at the finishing line. One industry will come and put some question. Okay, and these are very powerful multinationals. These are not some small ones. Now how do you tackle that particular problem? Now I can't come back here and say, okay, you give me a project on 5G, I will work on your project. Okay, so it kind of creates a very complicated situation today, particularly in 5G, and I suspect the same thing will happen in what they call 5G plus or 6G, which is coming in. So this is something we need to worry about. If there are Indian industries, great. Collaborating with Tejas, I would say, is the easiest thing for us to do. They are all friends out there in some sense, and we have been doing it. But besides Tejas, can you name an Indian industry which is really doing top-notch communication equipment or communication system manufacturing? At least I can't think of it. On the other hand, we have startups. There are many startups in 5G. Among them, there is some collaboration going on. Of course, competition will always be there. Now, on the other hand, if you look at the government, there is a lot of intent, strong intent. I will give 3 examples in the quantum of money. Currently, this project has been sanctioned. I'm very actively involved with it as chairman of the Scientific Advisory Committee, what they call interdisciplinary cyber-physical systems. 25 hubs are going to be set up in the country. Each hub will get to the tune of plus or minus, you can add about 100 crores. So it's not a small sum of money. The total budget which has been sanctioned by Government of India is 3,600 crores. This is all done through the cabinet approval. In fact, within a month or so, the announcements also will come, maybe some of the initial hubs. Okay, so which is very good. ICPS, or the cyber physical system, will of course have hubs in AI, ML, will have hubs in robotics, will have hubs in automation, okay, AR, VR, okay, all kinds of things that you can think of in the broad domain of cyber physical systems. Okay, so very good. But this particular thing also took nearly 2 years to get sanctioned. Okay, I'm repeating that particular part simply because time is very critical, and somehow we take too long to make to sort of get the things on the ground. Another big thing, I think, just about you're talking AI. Many of us sitting here involved with AI reports. Okay, we have written large number of reports. A lot of talk is there, intent is there, and I hear that policy, something will come out very quickly to the tune of 5,000 to 7,000 crore initiative, and perhaps being headed by Niti Aayog. Okay. Now again, it looks very rosy. We are all waiting for it. Thankfully for quantum computing, though this is AI and 5G, but in some sense, the future is quantum. Okay. Our finance minister in the budget speech announced that there is an 8,000 crore project which has been approved. Now, moment she announced it, 8,000 crores are there. There is hectic activity in Delhi now to get into action as to how these 8,000 crores can be productively utilized. So yes, on the government side, the intent is very, very strong, but the execution is very, very slow. I think the execution has to be speeded up. I really don't have very strong thoughts on it. Okay, but I think something we need to look at it. Now, how do we create industry-academia interaction in these cutting-edge technologies where we are going to be competing? You know, when we say we want to build a Huawei, it is not India building Huawei. We are going to compete with the Qualcomms, the Ericssons, you know, the Nokias of the world. Okay, China has done it. China's model. Perhaps one has to seriously look at and maybe look at how did China do it. It is, you know, Huawei is in an Indian context, I would say, a PSU. Okay, but a very, very different model for the PSU than the way PSUs function in India. Okay, so we have to look at it as to how we can do. Another thought is, you know, I mean, since I have friends at Tejas, I can take some liberties out here. Can we take something like Tejas? And what do? Can we convert Tejas into a Huawei rather than again starting from scratch and say that, okay, we are going to build another Huawei? Okay, so at this point, I leave it with these questions and some thoughts that I had. Thank you very much, Samir.
Thank you, Professor UB. Excellent points, and I think the frustration on things moving very slow has come out very clearly. The objective of a forum like this is what can IITs, industry, policymakers do together, and IIT ACB can be the node that can help speeden up these things. We'll move on to Arnab. Arnab has been a co-founder at Tejas, and in the thick of the telecom stuff, and as Professor UB Desai has said repeatedly, is probably the only Indian company. So why don't we get your thoughts on 5G and what's required?
Thanks, Samir. So I think by now with all the articles that we have seen, we all know the impact that 5G is going to have on our society, not only in terms of the way we use mobile technology today, but across manufacturing, healthcare, education, everywhere, right? So the opportunity is big. The investments that are going to go into the country, just in direct capex investments, is going to be multiples of 40 to 50 billion dollars, right? So I think the opportunity is not just to create Huawei's, but also to create the Broadcoms and the Qualcomms, and I think we should look at all of that to see that what is the opportunity in front of us, with what 5G offers, right? So how seriously should we take this effort at, when we talk about creating these companies, we're really talking about indigenization, right? Indigenization of 5G technology. Is it important? I think it is very important, right? I mean, it's going to be all pervasive in terms of the communication, in terms of critical communication, in terms of security and all those kind of things. So, and we have seen how the rest of the world is treating the security of their 5G networks and how concerned they are and what kind of decisions they are taking over there. So being able to, owning the key IPR over here is absolutely critical. We have to protect ourselves from technology denial, from owning key IPR, from being able to influence, as Professor Desai mentioned, the struggles we had with influencing Indian conditions into the global standards. We should be in a different position, with the kind of with the IPR that we own, right? So for many of these reasons, it is actually very imperative that we have to get into indigenization of 5G technologies, and the responsibility is basically threefold. Of course, the question is saying that this is easy, but are we ready? The point is that yes, we are ready, because across the number of the product categories that we have to develop, whether it's the devices, the end devices, whether it is the base stations, whether it is the optical transmission technology and the packet core. In all of these areas, we have companies like Tejas and many, many startups, really good startups, in the semiconductor space, in the software stack space. We may not be very aware of them. They have not been very successful, but they have a lot of good people, a lot of good ideas, a lot of good technology. And we have the ingredients to be able to work in a concerted manner to get into the indigenization that we're talking about. And on top of that, we have our academic infrastructure. There are multiple centers of research excellence in the IITs and the NITs and the IIScs. We are working with IISc and IIT Hyderabad, but there are many, many other centers of excellence in communications research. So with this kind of infrastructure available to the country, it's a shame if we cannot take it further and basically build that indigenization, which will lead to the Huawei's and the Broadcoms and Qualcomms, right? But this is not good enough, right? There is a third angle, which is really the government, because developing this is going to take a huge amount of funding. Now the estimates are it's going to take $2 to $3 billion of R&D funding. Some of the initial grants have been announced. It's slow to come. I know some grants have come to some of the institutes, but with the amount of money required, the grants have to, I think the private industry has to get into play over here. It's just not a question of the government thinks it's very easy for governments to pass on the grants to the public sector, to the institutes, the academia, but there is a huge amount of hesitation in terms of R&D funding to the private sector, And I think the three arms, the private sector, the academia, and the government, have to really come together to make this happen. Not only the funding has to come. There are a few other things that have to come. Market access. India is one of the biggest telecom markets. So the government has to make the market accessible to the companies and to the academia who are developing products over here through their Make in India program and so on, right? Thirdly, very importantly, giving access to the standard essential patents that are required on a FRAND basis, right? The fair and non-discriminatory basis. So the government can ensure all of that, can ensure that the standard essential patents, which the big MNCs really own and protect, can be made available to the industry and academia, in exchange for the license to operate or the opportunity to sell in India, kind of thing, right? So this is where the three arms have to really come together. We have to be in a kind of a mission mode to get this done, the way we do our space programs, the way we do our missile programs, where actually it has been proven how the PSUs and the private sector can actually come together. There is a lot of good will and a lot of thinking in the government. Some of the action has started, but not really that much. Can it be done? Of course, I'll echo Professor Desai when he says that we don't have to look too far. If you look at China, where they were in terms of their industrial expertise, in terms of the academia, they were no better than where we were, right? But 10 years back, they took up telecom and AI in this kind of a mission mode. And look at where they are today. So it is not impossible that India is in a position that they can do it. And the second part is, should we do it? I think the way I look at it is, and I tell people, how many countries in the world who can even has the budget for why $2 billion, even $10 billion to invest in indigenous technology development? How many countries are out there who are even capable of doing it? right? Probably 4, 5, and we are one of them. So missing out on this opportunity of developing indigenous 5G technology with such a pervasive impact on society and everything that we're going to do, I think if we don't do it, it's really a criminal waste of opportunity. And that's the way I like to summarize.
Good. Thanks, Arnab. I think you've painted a picture of fair amount of optimism as well, saying that there's a lot of work happening and so on. Probably it needs orchestration to get it, to a place where we can create the next Huawei's. And I think another point you made is we just don't need the next Huawei's. We also need the Qualcomms and Broadcoms coming out of here. Professor Balki, you said you would talk on AI research, so we'll really switch gears a bit. But I'll come back to you if time permits on 5G, but I think let's get into AI research with you.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much, sir. Actually, most of the people here think that MI and AL are fully developed tools and they can apply to anything. It's an elixir of life. But actually, if you look at it, it's far from truth. According to Michael Jordan, who is a great guy in AI is a wonderful aspiration, but we are nowhere near it. And it's going to take several years. And only IITs and IIScs and academic institutions, along with the industry, can take them to that aspiration to become a reality. Machine learning has come of age. I'm not saying that machine learning and AI have come of age. Machine learning has come of age. But it's far from being a very strong engineering discipline that can yield robust, scalable solutions to modern data analytic problems. There are a lot of things to be done between them. There are many hard problems. I can list them at the end, involving uncertainty, inference, decision-making, robustness, and scale. That are far from being solved and crying for a very highly intellectually alert minds to look at them. Not to mention the economic, social, and legal issues of AI. Let's see how AI developed or ML developed. In the first generation, in the 90s, we started talking about fraud detection, search, supply chain management, and so on from Amazon. And in the early 21st century, the human side started coming, the recommendation system, commerce, social media, and so on. The third generation started talking about end-to-end solutions like speech recognition, computer vision, and translation. Now we are looking at the fourth generation, the markets. All along, we were actually looking at thinking that AI and ML would be human imitative perspective will be the issue. But once we started thinking that it's not likely to be, it's not going to be a perfect translator, it's not going to be a perfect speech recognition system and so on, we moved towards what is called an intelligence augmentation. That's a reality. I can speak in English and it can be translated into any other language. However bad it is, it's a good enough translation. There is a human intelligence listening to it on the other side, and that's realizable. Intelligent infrastructure with lots of data being collected by IoTs and so on. The infrastructure awareness has become quite a lot, so integrate that into this. Unfortunately, we're trying to apply the AI solutions that we tried for the human imitative systems to human assisted systems as well as the AI systems. Autonomy shouldn't be our main goal. We are not trying to make cars that's going to work only with a driverless car, but it's also going to work with the entire environment. Our goal should be development of small pieces of intelligence that work together to create a huge impact. So let's look at some of the statistics and challenges, because this area is at the intersection of statistics and computer science. Robustness is one of the key areas where we don't even have complete solutions on that. We use large data set, uncurated data sets, and when you actually try it on models, test data sets actually behave differently. There are lots of surprising security and privacy issues come. How do you make the system robust against adversarial attacks is one of the key issues. Dealing with data scarcity. At one end of the problem, one end of the our approach, we started looking at AI as a way of handling large amount of data. But in reality, the problem is data scarcity. How do I squeeze the best intelligence out of the very small amount of data that I have so that I can even apply it to real-time problems? Self-supervised learning. Earlier, we started talking about semi-supervised, unsupervised learning. Today, something that works better in practice is a self-supervised learning, but still we don't know why it works, and there are many issues to be thrown out. Dealing with distribution shifts, causal inference, and reinforcement learning, these are the key topics on which IITs and IIScs could actually work together and create much more intelligent portfolios. New application areas have come, AI plus economics, designing system that can extract abstractions very fast, and designing system that can explain the decisions. Explainable AI is going to be the key issue in the future to come. So that's where I think, a lot of maths, lot of science, lot of computer science to be used, and system that pursue long-term goals. People have been working at the institutes and IITs and so on never-ending learning. So these ML systems that we are talking about are going to be never-ending learning systems. So I think lots of questions which we should answer to make AI and ML a complete tools that somebody could apply. Otherwise, what we are going is we have a package, a MATLAB package, we take some data, apply that, and then do that. That's not going to make you intelligent. So this portfolio, pushing it up the value chain, will make us, very strong nation. Why I'm saying that is, unlike any other area, the investments needed here in terms of actual money is less. The intellectual capital needed is quite large. We have that. So I thought this is the way by which we could actually create more wealth along with the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Balki. I think you outlined very well the building blocks where work needs to be done so that AI can become more pervasive and give us a lead. And you also ended on a note of optimism, which I'm very happy about, that we have the brain power and we don't need so much money to operationalize these areas. So NKK, among your points, do cover the industry use cases where some of these things could be utilized for.
Yeah. Thank you. I thought, Samir, I'll just share 5 things where I think the IIT ACB can clearly play a nodal role. One, many times when we think about AI, I think enough research has shown that it's going to create a $30 trillion economic impact. And a lot of that is going to be technology driven. So we start with a fundamental assumption and a belief that since it's going to be a lot more technology driven, this is an opportunity which is going to be multi times bigger than the IT services industry which we talk about now. So I think rather than worrying about China and US have gone ahead of us, I think the first areas where IIT ACB can impact is to set up an overarching vision for the country in terms of what are the areas which in the next 3-4 years will attain leadership. I think thankfully you have so many thought leaders who have the capability to influence the government on that. So I think this is one action which is very urgently required. Rather than looking back saying some other country has sort of gone ahead, let's look ahead in terms of saying where are we going to be the leaders? And we have people who can really influence the society on that. Having said that, I think there are 3-4 elements which I think become very important to attain this leadership position. One, like rightly Professor Balki said, can IIT identify basic areas of research where we'll really drive the standards in the world? Areas like explainable AI, areas like ethical AI. Yeah. Can we take an early leadership position in that? And can IIT ACB really be a nodal point in driving the research agenda on that? Because fundamentally, I do believe, honestly, Indian companies are fast followers. They don't focus much on basic research. So to really anticipate industry to even give meaningful feedback on where basic research needs to be done, I think that will not come. But clearly IIT can really play a key role in identifying the areas and the industry can, in a way, merely be an aid to that. The second thing is really, like you rightly said, accelerate use cases. Because the opportunity in AI is really going to be in terms of how does it get deployed in a manner in which it impacts business outcomes. I think the fundamental algos and so on are all going to become commoditized. How do you apply it in the context of a business? Which is where I think industry, IITs and policymakers and government can really play a very key role. Again, in an area like logistics, if you have meaningful use cases in the Indian context, if you have solved the logistics problem of transporting a good in a cost-effective and time-effective manner in Bangalore, you have solved it for the world. So I think use cases become very, very important. So if we can pick up those specific use cases, have a concentrated activity in terms of how we'll demonstrate it, I think that will play a big way in terms of wide-scale adoption. Now, and again, if we think back in the larger context of the opportunity, I think one big advantage we have is that we have people who can really make this happen at scale. Because at the end of the day, if you just look at any statistics, at least India has 1.5 million people who understand technology. The question is, how do you reskill them? How do you really transform them for the new need? So can IIT SEB and really play a key role in transforming and skill development of this large people? And also as a part of the curriculum, start building in some of the new skills which are required, which needs to be successful in the new context. So I think IIT SEB can play a very fundamental nodal role in the skill transformation as well as generating skills in some of the people who come out of the institutes, where we can, because talent at the end of the day would become really a key differentiator in making a leadership position. And that I think we have in abundance. And that's an advantage which you need to leverage. And my last point is, I think rightly so, many times I've felt frustration in terms of government initiatives not going as per what is planned. But again, there are a number of things where I find even in the government or in what you could call public projects, things have gone on schedule. An activity like Aadhaar, which got driven by an IIT Bombay alumnus, is a big case in space. Or if you look at our securities market, the level of technology sophistication we have in securities, or today in our financial services on payment systems, I think none of the developed countries have that. But if you see the distinction, is that many of these large public projects have been managed using governance principles which are applied in private sector. Because Aadhaar never used the governance principles of managing, which was a government thing. Nandan bought on all the private sector sort of thing, which that project succeeded. Or for that matter, Mr. Patil on NSC didn't think of it as a public institution. He really brought in a lot of governance principles. Or for that matter, in RBI, with whom I'm involved, some of the technology work in terms of sophistication they've done is probably amongst the best in the world. And that's because Dr. Rajan set up that charter 5 years back in terms of vision, saying that I want the central bank to be, in terms of technology savviness, the best in the world. So bringing in, I think IIT SEB can play a very key role in identifying key projects which are important for the country and really bringing in private sector governance and transparency efforts into managing those projects. And that's something which I think as a group you can really influence. So these are really my 5 observations.
Thank you, NKK. I think that's a very important point you made, that things can get done in government provided a private sector governance framework comes in, and maybe that's where again IIT SEB really can play a role. Can we create an UIDAI for AI? Can we create a UIDAI for 5G, etc., etc.? Professor Tiwari, you were talking about some of the work that you have done in this area of IoT, AI, and so on, and you had thoughts on what industry can do to help commercialize and take that forward.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank IIT SEB for giving me this opportunity to be here and share some of the knowledge that I have. Well, everybody knows that I am not an expert in AI and ML. True. I would like to tell something because I have been hearing right from the morning that we should be thought leaders. We should not be working for society. Some people said, no, we must also think of the society. A couple of days back, I was just going through the paper, which was the background of evolution of IIT Kharagpur. And in fact, you would also assume that IIT Kharagpur is the mother of all IITs. In 1948. At that time, they had thought that IITs, any institution of higher learning, that was the name earlier, will be on the lines of MIT. Now, if I say, we have talked in the morning, many of us, that we were actually meant for only teaching. Fine. If MIT at that time thought only that, maybe that this is true. I do not know. But after this is 70th year in which IIT Kharagpur has entered. And if we look back, I think we have very little to offer. This is my way of looking at it. Others may disagree with me. I'll give you an example. In 2008, Jairam Ramesh came to our institute and he asked, what your institute has done for the common man. Just one thing. Please tell us one thing. They were all heads of the department, deans, and other people. And not a single answer came. I just said mildly that the rice huller, which was designed by IIT Kharagpur, made a great mark in the whole rice milling industry in India. He said, yes, I know the whole government knows about IIT Kharagpur's contribution in this. Anything else? We had no answer. I'm telling because those who were that time, they may also remember that we had no answer. Now, if I go back and say that all of us are talking, where we have gone wrong, possibly we have to think in such a way. We are talking of ACB. We have not talked of the alumni. A is alumni, in fact. We did not talk of the alumni. Alumni is our greater source. Secondly, we have not talked of the students. We are talking of IPR. A lot of IPR is available. We, in fact, when the government wanted, you should have IPR. We have filed 400 patents. We boast also. But question is, how much of that IR? In fact, I was asked a question in the MHRD that how much of your PhDs are all actually translatable onto the ground. It was very difficult to answer. I think we can all think about what answer I would have given. Now, the question is where we have lagged, in my way, is that we have not taken anything result-oriented, mission-oriented. We should have thought of a project. We should have thought of a product. We should have thought of a process. And the process must deliver within the end of the 3 years. The projects we have done over the years, but we have never thought of a product to be developed. If we think, if IIT doesn't do, who will else? Let me tell you, yesterday when I was coming in the flight, they say that what IITs have done, and let us, whatever we may think of thought leaders, we may be thought leaders true, but the whole 130 crore people are looking at us. They say that IITs are big. What the IITs have done? Why the IITs should not do something? Why we are purchasing things from China? Small toys, many things he was talking. True. We must think about this. Why we are talking of China, Germany and all that? He said that why can't you design the guns and other the ammunitions which are being purchased from other countries? Yes, this is a question we must answer. We may think of 5G now. We have AI. True. But what we have done so far, we should go back. There is a need. Therefore, if I talk of AI, I can tell you that AI can do right from the farmer's level to the cybersecurity. You can think of what we can do in the healthcare system, what we can do for minimizing the cost of the healthcare with the farmers. 70% of the people the India stays in villages. That all of us know. So we have to think of that. Right from that, malnutrition. We have to think something on nutrition. We should thinking something on the precision agriculture. We should think of what is manufacturing. We should think of transportation. We should think of what the pollution which is coming up. I think there are a amount of problems and these need to be assessed. These need to be done something on this. Now, for that, what is important is we should take, each IIT should take. In fact, the IITs say that the computer science, electronics, electrical engineering should only talk of high. Fine. There is need for a block quad technology at the same time, satellite. This country is doing that. So we have to think in the way that integrated approach is essential. In fact, Professor Desai was there a couple of days back. We had went there. In fact, he was talking of the same project, that there has to be an interdisciplinary approach, which we had. This is the first time I saw that agriculture, engineering, precision agriculture, and healthcare was listed in the topics of the whole IIT projects that we are thinking of. And you can see that hackathon for last 5-7 years, which is coming up, 50-60% of that is all everything mechanical, electrical, electronics applied into agriculture problems. Today, the whole country is looking at every technology must be applied to solve the problem of the country. What we are doing. So let us take in this fashion that we have to have the alumni, the industries and the IITs. And there has to be integrated approach on one item. Let every IIT think that I will develop the ink, the pen which we are using. The ink is not here. We cannot develop a ink. We do not have this pen also, we are not made in India. We have to think certain things. Why can't? If every IIT thinks that we will have at least 5 items to be done in next 3 years of time, whether you use AI, use 5G, or use any technology. This is my way of looking at things. Definitely at the end of 3 years, there should be a goal-oriented, that after 3 years we will have a product which can be multiplied in the 4th year, and in the 5th year it must go to the market. If you put like this, I think there is a good prospect of utilizing whether AI or MG. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Tiwari. I think you brought 2 very important points. One is whatever we take forward should have an impact on society. I think that's a very good point. And you brought up this point of what have IITs done. I don't have the answer, but I think they've done a lot. But I'm very happy to tell you, and Professor Mishra had asked me to introduce myself very quickly, which I forgot in the beginning. So I'm part of a venture capital fund, Inventus Capital Partners. We invest in technology companies at the Series A stage. But this introduction, you reminded me because you talked about toys from China, and I'm very happy to say that one of our recent investment is actually a toys company. A toy company that is utilizing technology, interacting, it's using AR, physical blocks, solving the problem of parents who worry about their children spending too much time on the screen. So they're allowing them the screen, but also physical toys to educate them. So thanks for that trigger. I sat through the previous 2 panels that happened, and we ran out of time for questions. So before I ask my questions, I thought it's very important to take all the questions from people here, and not just questions. There are eminent people, the directors of IIT, so even comments would be most welcome. So let's throw it open to the house, and yes. And can we get mics?
Well, I am Dr. Singh from Bharat Force. Actually, I like the statement of Professor Tiwari, that which is lacking at IIT. I am alumni of 2 IITs, IIT Bombay and IIT Madras. So we should work in project mode. When the topic of AI came, Bharat Force, but he has given a time span of 3 years. Bharat Force never gives a time span of more than 1 year for such technology. We already put up a AI lab. We are working on this. Our focus is mostly for defense equipments, for our guns, UGV, UAVs and all that. We have shown this, our AI lab, to top army people, including chief and deputy chief and all that.
May
Now
I just request your comment be brief so that we can get more?
Within 2 sentences, I will tell you. Now, what is happening is, we showed just few days back, one of the army chief, that we can do face identification, and we can feed that, and we can do vehicle identification. We can do identification whether it's a civilian or an army man or all that. But what he said is, you have to do identification in the big crowd and with moving people and all that. So for that, we want data from army. They are ready to give the data. When the bulk of data comes, the consultant with whom we are working, they are a startup company having good knowledge of AI, and we have set up all this. When this big data handling comes, we may take help of some IIT if we know that they can do it. That is my first comment. Second comment is for AI, which everybody has to learn. I have got an announcement from IIT Bombay. They are doing a training program for 2-3 days on AI, and there is fees is more than 1 lakh rupees per person. So if fees is more than 1 lakh rupees per person, I send 3%, 4%. They come with the knowledge of fundamentals of AI. We are much ahead of that. It is a waste of time. So that is why there's a focused approach. And if somebody can help us, yesterday, Nandan Nilekani talked about some Vivek or somebody who is expert in face identification. We are ready to take help of such people. So our demand is very focused, very strong.
Sure. So Professor Mishra said that they will do it. Anyone wants to comment on what he said, or can we get more questions? Okay. Any more questions? Yeah. So, yeah. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
See, we are already doing this, and this is a very expensive proposition. IIT Hyderabad, Vizag, Kiran Kuchi and all, we are fabricating an NB IoT chip. When it comes out, it will be a chip from India. Okay, it will be the first of its kind IoT chip coming out, because this is narrowband IoT chip, part of a 5G standard which can be used with 5G systems. Okay, But the process by which we are able to do it, it's very, very difficult. In fact, we have gone through, one does it. First time I got involved with it when Kiran came up with this thing that, fabricating a chip is not like what we do in a classroom exercise. You can't have all the IP with you, first of all. Okay, you have maybe one small IP, the remaining 6 IPs have to be bought. Now that's an expensive proposition. Who's going to sell you those IPs? Just striking deals, and these are international ones. It is not that all the remaining 6 IPs are going to come from companies in India. Some may be in Israel, some may be in US, some may be in Europe. Then where do you get it fabricated? India has nothing. I mean, the fabrication also, particularly when you're starting with something like this, it's a huge challenge because I talk to people at TSMC, Taiwan. They don't look at it unless your chips are into hundreds of millions. I mean, if you say we need 10,000 chips to start with, the guy said, great, I mean, you're just smiling at me. Very polite people, of course. Okay, and some of them were Indians. Okay, so again, you run into a bottleneck out here. Now, you want a guy who's putting everything together, okay, who also has an international repute. Because if I'm to sell something in the international market, they are not going to take it up if there is a small, mom and pop kind of a group which is, putting the things together. So one had to look for something like that. So finally, this chip that is being fabricated by WISEC is being done in Belgium by a company which came out of IMAC. Many of you in the VLSI industry must have heard of IMAC. So that was a deliberate thing because otherwise, we wanted someone which was affordable and reputable. So yes, there is some work going on hardware. Okay, but it is a very, very difficult process. Like for example, the next task we want to work on is a 5G chip. Of course, Samsung says they have it. Then I think Huawei also claims to have it. I mean, you must have seen some, postings on Facebooks and various other newspaper items, social media and otherwise. Now, how do we actually now do it? The problem we run into it, the amount of investments we make are like loose change compared to what Samsung or Huawei would make to fabricate this chip. They would start that their least count will be billion. They start from there. They can do it within 1 year or less than that. Our least count is 1 crore. Now we compare where we are. I'm really getting to it because, and getting money, government gives a little money. No private industry gives money. I've talked about it. Private industries will never come forward for a project which has a certain major risk factor. They come into the play when we are mature. Like on this part, we have been talking to Reliance Jio. Okay, so that negotiation goes on. So it is not that we are just doing in isolation without industrial feedback and industrial cooperation. But this, I'm not looking at, fabricating embedded system boards. That's a much simpler task, and that I think there are many companies in Bangalore today who are doing it. I think I'm not even elaborating on that. I mean, you throw a stone, you'll probably hit a embedded system by a fabricator in Bangalore. Okay, and maybe Hyderabad is a little less, but Hyderabad, Chennai, Pune, Bangalore is of course far ahead. But I think what we need to get into is chip fabrication, where we can really get some IP from India into the market. And I think that is being done, but it's a uphill task. I mean, when I talk to, what's that? The name is suddenly, Cadence head in Noida. He's a good friend, Jesse. So Jesse, when I gave the rupee figure to him, Jesse first started laughing at me, He said, what are you talking? In VLSI industry, with this kind of money, how far are you going to go? Okay. I mean, he's a good friend. We have Fabless Chip Design Incubator at IIT Hyderabad. We have all the tools, all professional tools from Cadence. We have signed an agreement with Cadence out here. Okay. But still, I mean, he says that, look, fine, you go. Then I told him, Jesse, we have to make a beginning somewhere. If you wait for that billion, that may never happen. So at least he was quite cooperative, I must say, very supportive. Same thing, Mentor has been very supportive in this. But I think we need, this is where, if you ask me if IIT ACB can create an ecosystem. In fact, we gave a talk, and I must thank both Professor Mishra and Ashok Kamath for organizing and helping us give that talk in Bangalore. Okay, under the auspices of IIT ACB, where we had few VLSI industry people come in. I think this is where this hardware part, I'm glad you raised it, can IIT ACB create this linkage, where we can really go for chip fabrication?
I think that's a beautiful answer. Arnab wants to also add a point, but just before you go, Arnab, I think this is what we were looking for from a discussion and forums like this. If a task force gets set up, it should really brainstorm on should we take in 5G chip making as an area, then industry could contribute even funding, not just brain power, but funding could come collaborative, and that IP could be a national IP. But Arnab, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I think maybe we'll run out of time. Let's have some of the other questions. So maybe I'll just summarize that at Tejas, our product finally goes out as hardware. So it's like very cutting edge hardware systems. And we also, of course, apart from using the chips, we also have the same problem of how do we realize our ASICs, because we really don't have the volumes to fabricate our IP into chips. So we use extensively the FPGAs, the programmable chips. We use that a lot till we grow our volume. But we are also a fabulous IC design house where most of the IPR is actually working in semiconductor form on FPGA. So that's the intermediate solution till you hit volumes and you can go to the fabs and hit the same problem that Professor Desai is talking about.
Okay, so yeah, Shekhar, if you have the mic.
Yeah. Hello, this is Shekhar from Kharagpur. Even I'm trying to come down a level, chip fabrication requires a lot of infrastructure and other things. But even like in AI, we need to process a lot of data, a lot of compute power is needed. Even for that, we go to Amazon Web Services or some other. Can't India set up those type of things where individual programmers don't need to be company, don't need to be anything. Individual programmers can go play around at a low cost rent, compute power, rent storage space, and then somebody comes out with a breakthrough. A million programmers do something, guaranteed that some of them will hit it. But how do we facilitate such type of scale?
So Shekhar, I'll request NKK, given his NASCOM experience, to just answer that.
See, I think that's a very good idea. In the budget speech, the minister made a thing in terms of data center things. Hopefully that will create some sort of private capital coming in. I don't think at the government level they can sort of put in that because they don't have the capabilities to manage it. Hopefully there has to be some private investments which come in, which really start creating the thing. Because like you rightly said, I think we can't be dependent on Amazon or an Azure for going back to all the services. And I see the power of our idea because I think we have a lot of people who have the ability to experiment, and if you don't give an infrastructure where they're able to experiment with this. So hopefully one of the things, like Samir said, again coming back to actions, how do we explore translating what has been said in the budget to potentially even being a possible business case for some private entrepreneurs to create capital and do that, or even existing companies like I think Controllers in Hyderabad, can they start doing it? I think that should be the thing which you could explore.
This is an excellent question, and I think some initiatives have been taken. I'll just narrate a small thing. I am a member of that NSM Executive Board, National Supercomputing Mission. So last meeting we had, we told CDAC, and in principle CDAC agreed. I said, why don't you have, if possible, a petaflop, if not maybe a 100 teraflop machine, set it up in wherever, say Pune or any CDAC center, and make it available to anybody in the country who wants to use it, free of cost. In principle, I have to go through the minutes. The minutes just came, I think, a short while ago. I hope, and again, I'll force Darbari, who's the Director General of CDAC, to create that. So that will be like a national thing where if you want to use it, or even a kid from, say, some college in whatever, maybe in some small town in India wants to use it, he can just log in, register, maybe Aadhaar-based registration, that's what we had proposed out here, and he can use that machine, or she can use that machine to do whatever AI work that they want to do. Okay, number one. So this is coming up. As usual in the government thing, they take their own sweet time. It could have, at the meeting, the guy told me that I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, but then that tomorrow, it's like if you live in Bombay, there is a word called tabartop karta hai. And that tabartop means a lot of different things. Okay, so this was similar to that. The second thing is that many IITs are now getting AI supercomputers like DGX2. And at least at IIT Hyderabad we are getting, hopefully I've been suggesting them, we can make it available for a price for any industry who wants to use it, because we may, in the beginning, may not be able to use the full power of that machine. So I think your suggestion is excellent. This is again industry-academia collaboration. Every collaboration need not be like a big mission, big project, but this is where we will come closer to each other. Okay, and this can be done. I think it is a very simple model that can be worked out, where the resources can be shared. Okay, and it can be, we can take it forward.
Yeah. Thank you, panelists. I'm Raj. I'm heading the technology planning for Huawei. I think most of the talks are here on the Huawei. So let me share things which we find, or in the China university ecosystem. Probably some certain things will be there in India ecosystem also. So it's just an information, not a question. So from the perspective of multidisciplinary research perspective, most of the universities in China are designed around the STEM aspects. So that is one area, especially STEM for the 5G or STEM for the AI. And now being AI is very important, they now setting up the multidisciplinary around STEAM, S-T-E-A-M, where A is nothing but the arts, because for the AI, the humanities, psychology, all those things are aspects are required. So it is a kind of thing which they have set up those kind of research. That is number one point. Regarding the translational research, mostly most of the industries are in China volunteered to be part of taking the basic research into translational research, and a lot of incentives from the government is also there where they can leverage this translational research. That is one aspect, and of course the infrastructure of in terms of the data, of course from the China the large kind of data which they will offer for this AI related aspect. That is the second one. Third one is on the basic research. Despite applied research or multidisciplinary research or other things, the basic research becomes much stronger over there, and that is giving some kind of advantage in influencing the standards, influencing the standard bodies to have these kind of perspectives. So these are the three things which we observed from the practice of universities and institutes in China. Probably it will be there in India as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. And I don't know Raj, but I met him at the tea break. He spent 20 years in Huawei. So if at all IIT ACB takes up a project to get into 5G, we should utilize his brain power or experience as well. Any other question? Yes. 1, 2. Yeah, the mic is coming. And then I want to touch upon security issues in 5G as well, which was a critical topic. But after we take these two questions, maybe a few comments.
Hi, this is Venkat, IIT Madras. This question is specifically for the directors and the professor in the panel, right? So I have more than 15 years experience in the analytics and AI space. And we look up to IIT students for hiring, right? But fundamentally for their raw IHP, right? Now, fundamentally, and this has been going on for the past 20 years, when I interview an IIT candidate, right, and when I want to conceptually test them on AI or analytics, one of the things is that across branches, they invest about 4 or 5 years in that particular discipline, and they don't have exposure to, computer sciences or specifically AI. And I'm very glad that Professor Tag, with whom I was talking during the break, has taken the initiative to create that BTech program in data sciences, right? What initiatives are being taken to replicate data sciences and AI kind of programs purely so that IIT students will get an edge over NIT?
Yeah. We've got your question. Yeah, I think very nice you have said this question, because when anything starts, I can tell you just slightly back, in 1984, two of us were sent to IIT Delhi in 1984 for a fermentation technology, which was later on known as biotechnology. Now, so start with, whenever something comes, for example, AI and data sciences come, the departments who are offering these courses, they have certain requirements, prerequisites and all that. But now, because of the applications in varied regions, we are thinking that there should be this course for all the branches. And maybe that next time, within next 3-4 years when you come, you will find several students who are applying this. In fact, I can tell you, I learned AI and image processing in 2003, 2004, and I was trying to use those things. I can tell you that some of the equipment which we have developed, they require the knowledge of Internet of Things. We are also working on some of the sensors. We have not developed sensor, mind you, but we have used those sensors. What I would like to say is, let us talk of also developing these sensors. And for that, what is important is a rigorous effort and a dedicated group What we do is that a group does for some time when the project comes, and after that, when project money goes, nobody does after that. But I think in the IITs have to think of long. We do not have any Nobel laureate. Why? Because this is the way we are working. We should have dedicated groups for these. For example, if in all IITs there should be groups intended for a particular AI product over the period of time with the help of the companies which are there, which are the, maybe that this location could be a hub for that. And there should be a dedicated effort. One of the persons goes away, but the next person joins, and the whole group does with actually the time set and a product in mind that has to come. We may fail initially, but I am sure the government will appreciate our effort. So I think we have to do this thing, then only we will be in a position to help. All the IITs must do in this. Thank you very much.
I think there is a lot of effort going on in this domain. I think the public at large is not aware of it. Like IIT Hyderabad was first to start a BTech program in AI. They have a MTech in AI and ML. There's the AI center. Now what has happened is there are a lot of colleges having it. I mentor quite a few of these colleges now. After retirement, that's one thing I do. So there are smaller colleges, you may be not aware of it. They have already started a program in AI and data science at the BTech level and launched roughly at the same time. Have you heard of IIIT Naya Raipur? Probably not. Okay, they have started it. Okay, so I'm just giving one name which I know not many would have heard of it. The biggest thing is that because of these small things, AICT has taken an initiative, and all NBA accredited colleges from 2020 July-August will have a BTech program in AI and data science. Okay, there's a long story and a lot of jokes. I won't get into all those things. Moreover, in fact, I just have to go over the document. They are going to start minor. Unfortunately, at times, people in Delhi mix up minor and they make it into an honors program for civil engineers in AI. I don't know. So they are going to have minors in AI/ML, minor in robotics. This is at college level. I'm not talking of IIT. I'm talking of tier 2 colleges or tier 3. Basically, NBA accredited colleges. Minor, that's what AICT wants to push, which is very heartening. So AI/ML, I don't remember, security, robotics, and I think AR/VR. 4 of them I remember. I think there's one more topic. So the point is that, yes, things are happening. And in fact, I've been telling Anil Sahasrabudhe, the chairman of AICT, that Baba, at least publicize it, tell people that this is done. So at least people will know, and but for some reason, that announcement, they are taking a little longer to announce it. But shortly, I think they will announce it, that all these colleges. So what you are saying is already happening. We should be now getting good AI, ML broadly and data science manpower in the next 4 years.
Okay. Actually, when I say security issue in 5G, you will have to distinguish between 2 different aspects of security that we do on that. One is to ensure that the 5G protocols are secure, and that I'm sure the world standard organizations would take care of that. The second is when someone implements it, particularly a country that's not in India, that's not India, you import that equipment. There are lots of things that get in and make that compromisable. First is the fact that everybody who develops an equipment, he will put backdoors for service entry and other things and so on. Over a period of time, he will not close it, and it will be found by the hackers. I'm talking about telecom equipment security. The second, implementation of, let's say, the software implementation of several aspects, particularly crypto products. They will implement it like a programmer doing it. It will be, there are 2 standards against which it is being compared, CAVP and CMVP. The algorithmic validation and the module validation. Most of the guys are extremely good in making sure it's algorithmically it's correct. If you give this input, it'll come out. But security is, performance is, if I give this input, this output should be there. Security is the very, complement of all of this. That's a huge space. If I give something else which is not given there, what will happen is a question. So ls minus L, you will get the directory. ls minus 592.5, if I give, what happens to it? It might give you the, root access. So it's a very, very complicated topic. The second thing is, many of the items which are there inside that equipment that you buy might not have been manufactured in one single location. So there would have been bugs that would have been introduced into this. The third is actually the software is actually a coat of many colors, as we call it in computer science. You take one module from there, reusability as you would call it, but it's software engineering, but it's a coat of many colors stolen from various sources and so on, which are not authenticated. So that's why no company would agree to give you the source code, because in which case you may find out where it actually came from. So there are lots of issues to make sure that the equipment that you buy is not compromised later. It does not leak information of what is happening there. So there are standards and, standards which have been developed, and security testing has been, getting developed over a period of time. I think in this issue, you will have to have a 1+ mind compared to the hacker. That only the IIT kids can have it, not IIT professors. If you're about 20 years old, I think you lose the thinking of, that kind of hacking and all that. Because I knew when I was young, I had a much smarter mind than what I have now. So I think you need that manpower that you have is capable of breaking into systems, not by a conventional process, but still testing it. I think it's very, very crucial to this country because telecom has reached the level of critical infrastructure. It is not just you calling me and me calling you, but the nation's entire system might collapse if these equipments are compromised. Number two, you can actually create a humongous amount of wars within this country if I can actually hack into the telecom sector. We'll go into the details of it later, but I think making sure this 5G equipments, which are 99.99% going to be imported by not so friendly countries today, they are tested absolutely clearly.
Balki talked of 20. I'll just give, I think Subhashish may remember this incident. Many years ago, there was a seminar topic, not a BTech project at IIT Bombay with some students on security. So then I asked a question, how secure is IIT's network? Then the guy says, sir, what do you want me to do? And if I'm not mistaken, next morning, Subhashish and I got emailed our passwords, in our email. This is what an 18, 19-year-old is capable of. I don't know if Subhashish remembers.
So I was just trying to say that, in fact, some of the hackers should be used in that. I know why, because some people from police may be there. In fact, they use these people to get the information because they know what is the right place and where that the person could be found. So I think it is very essential that these groups, when we create, we should have young brains. The second-year students, first-year students who are very good, they may not be doing well. We forget that, oh, this fellow is getting less than 6, forget about him. No. Let us find out if the fellow is very good at computer, if he is doing something, let us include him in the team. And let us give them those things. I think instead of people at 50 and above, I would say that let it be a group of 18 and 35 and give this problem. It can be done. We have to be mission-oriented. This is my way of looking at things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Tiwari. Thanks for, saving me on the grade issue. Any other questions? Yeah.
This is Rajshekhar from IIT Dharwad. So far, we have been talking about standard-based networks like 5G or Wi-Fi. So, is there any scope for India on standardless like private networks or proprietary networks? Can we take a lead there?
Arnav, would you like to?
Yeah. I think there have been many instances of standards or proprietary standards being developed and equipment getting manufactured. The problem that happens is that since there is no large-scale adoption, the cost becomes very high, and the cost becomes very prohibitive. So that's the reason why people like to stick to standard-based implementation. Operators like to have standard-based implementation because they can interoperate equipment from multiple vendors. So for most of these reasons. And then you have semiconductors available which are on a mass scale. So it brings down the cost of the systems. It helps develop things faster. So that's the reason why, even though there is an ability to develop private networks with proprietary protocols, people tend to avoid that just from the cost and complexity point of view.
Actually, there is a lot of work in this country on private networks. Actually, most of the strategic networks are private. They don't use the regular protocols. They don't use the regular encryptions that we have. There are organizations which actually develop the encryptions and test the encryptions and then put them in. And number two is now, with the advent of blockchains, there are two kinds of things which are coming in: permissioned and permissionless blockchains. Most of the academics have been, concentrating on permissionless blockchains, but bank says it's a permission to blockchain because I'm going to be giving access to a guy who is actually having an account with me. Not every stranger is coming in. So you'll slowly find these kind of networks, when the blockchains come, they will also be almost looking like a private network of some kind. So already there are some of the networks which we have tested in this country. They're extremely good, much above the regular standards, but built by Indians for India, but closed user group.
So,
I can't apply that to a bank because bank has to interact with another bank in the United States.
Okay, yeah, Paritosh, can you get the mic? And if you have a follow-up question, just do it offline if you don't have time.
Hi, I'm Paritosh Sehgal from IIT Kanpur. Yeah. So this is taking on from what Professor Balki mentioned about the importance of the security checking on third-party products coming from outside. I really feel that even our mobiles are very susceptible. Today we get much of our mobile phones are all coming from China. Today they may look very harmless, but at any point in time, anything can be enabled software-wise as well as hardware-wise. And that's a very big compromise. But the question that I have is, taking on from there, can there be any thoughts about developing our own operating system that talks about Bharat operating system, and there's an urgency about a search engine, about Gmails. Of course, Google is a respectable company, but I'm just saying we don't know what happens at the national level. And, even government officials are using Gmail very rampantly in our country. So is there any such thoughts that we can have on this?
Who would like to answer it? Yeah,
I have very strong views on this. Not everybody agrees. I think it is a futile effort to come up with our own operating system. And why do you think it will not be hacked? Just because I develop it, you think can't? There are smart guys who are hacking it, right? People are hacking Microsoft operating system. Okay, so I think this is a myth that if I develop it on my own, nobody will hack it. Also, it's just look at operating system. Unix was since Unix there is really no fundamentally new operating system. You have to ask yourself why. Linux came up with it. What is iOS? Linux. What is Android? Linux. Okay. Essentially Linux, supercomputers are using Linux. So I think we need to be a little more circumspect and not have this perspective that everything will be reinvented and developed. This notion that everything will be Bharat X. I think we need to go beyond that. We are living in a globalized world. What we need to do is I agree with you, the problem that you are facing. Okay, and we need to create protections against that. But to say that the only way to protect it is I develop it myself, that will never happen. Okay. Anyway, I'm not everybody is going to agree with what I'm saying.
So Professor Tiwari and Professor Balki wanted to
No, I have a similar, I agree with you partly. At the same time, I agree with him in the sense that, true that we should not reinvent the wheel. It's not a question of reinventing the wheel. But why can't we have a mission like this that we should have our own engines? Why can't? I think this requires a lot of effort in this. And are we agree to do this thing? That is the question mark. That, in fact, that has to be answered. And if IITs cannot do, who else? Maybe when I say IITs, I am also taking sitting here that we have the alumni, we have the industry, because this is IIT industry, and hence at A, that means alumni center at Bangalore. So I consider this, that let the industry, the alumni and IITs come together and come out with something unique. Why only reinvent? It's not a question of reinventing. We should think of something different, more formats, more domains in that, and something different from that. Hacking is a part of the system because that will be hacked anyway, whether it is China or wherever Google or when we developed, as he rightly said. So that is there, but there has to be a mindset. Change in the mindset is the only answer for this country, nothing else. We had biotechnology 25 years back. We are having AI now. I am sure up to 20 years, if we do not change the mindset to do something of our own, and including the, in fact, with the hardware, we will be at the same place. Thank you.
Sir, I also feel that we shouldn't be wasting time on developing operating systems and many other things, because that is security by obscurity, because nobody knows who the hell is, who has developed this operating system. But the approach now to security is, particularly end user devices like your cell phone, is that any device that you have, you can commit suicide but not murder. You can wipe out all the information that you have, you cannot do anything. That's why what they have developed is our banking system, for example. You cannot, even if your bank, this thing is compromised, only your account will be compromised. It's extremely difficult to compromise the bank system. In other words, we have created, we meaning the scientists have created large number of, along the industry, large number of layers of software that is actually sit between you and the secure system. It's like lockdown and so on. So that highly insecure systems can, like your cell phone or your PC, can connect to a secure banking network. So you will not be able to corrupt it. So there is a layer in between. I think a nation could go ahead and develop that layer for itself as a standard. That's very simple. It's a lockdown, may not be even about more than 1,000 lines of code. You can actually go ahead and develop it. It's actually a lightweight operating system. You can strip off all the other things and have only a very lightweight operating system. It can run on a dongle. And then when you boot, any communication outside will take through the dongle. So these are all very simple things to develop, and you can develop it for your own self. So we don't have to worry about it. These things are well known. So you don't go around making the operating system changes, because then it will not be applicable to connecting to other people.
Yeah, I had one point, just one last point to make to actually for all the panelists and the audience as well. While the point is well taken that we shouldn't be inventing the wheel, we also have to realize the fact that the world is also getting very, very protectionist as we speak, right? And we have to understand the issue of technology denial as well. Look at what happened to ZTE when the US said that you will not get semiconductors. Look at what happened to the Chinese manufacturers when they say you cannot get Android, right? Look at when we did our nuclear tests for 10 years, there was not a single supercomputer that could be imported in the country, and a lot of our research programs got affected badly. So just food for thought. I don't have an answer to this. So the balance between don't reinvent the wheel and technology self-reliance, it's a fine balance, and there's something that we really need to think about. There's no 1-0 answer to it.
Good. I think we're ending this panel on that note, that there is a fine balance. It's good that we've had different opinions come up, because through different opinions will we arrive at the path ahead. I want to first of all thank all the panelists. All of them gave time in spite of their busy schedules so that we could have discussions, sync up, and have a productive session. I'd only urge AT, since you're taking the notes and the rapporteur, that 5G and AI were topics that in our wisdom we picked up. There could be more. There should be more brainstorming on what really should get done. And I think one key point that this panel has brought out is whatever is chosen, whatever is done should be done in mission mode. I think all the panelists, and especially Professor Tiwari, Professor Uday Desai, NKK and so on, have stressed on that. That would be the closing point. Thank you very much for all your questions and interaction, and thank you very much, panelists.